I think this is so helpful, John.
I know it's already been helping me.
It it reminds me of when I was in a 12-step program, and I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me, but it wasn't your issue, it was mine. So it was very helpful that God opened that door. People were like, oh, Christians don't go. I said, okay, let me deal with my stuff, okay? And if it helps me, I'll let you know. If it hurts me, then you let me know. It was so helpful because it resonated with me being aware that you can get out of addictions. You can if you're willing. You can. There's the possibility is endless, but you have to change your thinking and be responsible. And this reminds me of that,
Mm.
helpful in the way that you think. And I always say I need a lot of help coming out of what I now understand. I thought it was completely, I'm healed a lot compared to what I used to be, but I see more since we've engaged in this conversation a year or so ago what constitutes healing. And you made a wonderful statement. At the time, I was baffled because I wasn't reflective. And it's like, does
What,
Jesus want you to take
what
your
was
whole
the
life?
statement?
The statement that you made was to me was, well, you asked me a question. Does Jesus, you said, I don't think it really takes a whole lifetime to be
Oh,
cured of something, healed of something that's mental, from trauma. And, we see Jesus healing and stuff like that. But in my life, the Lord always gave me books, knowledge, and information to get me to read, to be interested in my own healing. So easy just to take it away from you, but you don't learn anything that way. And once again, I see him giving me books, creating me a curiosity of how to get well,
mm.
how to
Hmm.
come out of my bundle of nerves. And so I'm working it all the time. I haven't arrived, but the most helpful stuff, lots of wisdom, especially in today's time. And boy, I'll tell you, this is so helpful to me.
One of the things that I think is that this system can be really useful for is you probably know people that are really good people and they're
Mm,
so kind and stuff like that. And yet they will be so ugly towards themselves,
yeah.
right? That like they wouldn't want to judge other people, but boy, do they judge themselves,
Mm,
right? And I've started recognizing this more and more. There was a young woman that I was counseling and she's just she loves people so much and then but then she's so down on herself and unforgiving towards herself, right?
mm,
I said to her one day as I was realizing this, I said,
mm,
um, you know, if someone sinned against you and but they came to you and they apologized and they said they were sorry,
mm,
would um you harbor unforgiveness towards them? Would you say, I don't care, I'm still going to be mad at you, right? And she's like, oh, absolutely not. And I
mm,
said, then why are you doing it to yourself? Right? I said, you've repented of these things, right? She's like, yeah. Then why are you still beating yourself up for it? Would you do that to somebody else? She's like, no, no way. I said, well, stop doing it to yourself, right?
mm,
And I think that this it's this kind of thing. We get the judger the judger pit can frequently be a judger pit of judging ourselves,
mm,
being unhappy with ourselves because of something that we've done or thought or we're not doing, or whatever. And it's like, that's not helpful to be that way, right? If
mm.
you need to change, okay, that's fine. But the judger path is not going to help you change.
Good
Uh,
stuff.
Suzanne's got her hand up. Go ahead, Suzanne. Thank you, Donna.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm wondering what you think about, how this fits in with, okay, a lot of us, like, we just always go down the judger path because of how we were raised, that we've just been raised with so much trauma and judgment, and these are patterns that we've learned for our whole lives from our families, how we fight in our families and things like that. And I'm just wondering, like, how much do you feel? a person needs to really also deal with that and understand where the fear is coming from. Because you might be the kind of person that can just catch yourself going down the judger path and go, you know what, I'm going to just start asking learner questions, and you can do that switch. But for so many people, it's just so ingrained, and it's ingrained emotionally in a way that's based in, all kinds of really intense emotions, betrayal, fear, anger, all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so my question is more like, if you're the kind of person like that, which I am and my husband is, and a lot of people I know, um, and you can't just automatically just tell yourself to change tracks. Like, so how
Right. No, that doesn't
what
work.
what can you do, and like how much do you really need to understand where all that's coming from? Because I can tell you, like, years and years of going to therapists doesn't work. And sometimes, praying a lot about it doesn't really help either, or it doesn't seem to help. So yeah, I'm just wondering what other practical ways of looking at that.
Okay, so from a I'm gonna first thing I'll say is I'm still learning this stuff, right? This is fairly new for me. I mean, I know I've sort of practiced some of this stuff without this system. Um, I've had a number of like little things that I'll do to kind of get myself out of a particular way of thinking and little tricks and stuff like that. I like to say, um, you know, like one of the ways in which if I'm like in a contentious situation with my wife, for instance, um, I'll remind where I'm feeling righteous indignation. I should say this, right? I'm feeling righteous that she is wrong to me, right? She, this is her fault, and I'm right in this situation, right? And she's being bad to me, and I will remind myself of how much I've sinned against the Lord and how much He's forgiven me. And it's an instantaneous in my heart and mind. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
and it just leaves. It leaves my body, right? So I know I've done some of these things to help me to get out of that, just kind of learning the things that I've learned, over the course of my lifetime. And I certainly didn't start off my life with trauma like some people. So I know I heard a friend of mine who has a trauma background saying once that it's unfair because she she's starting at a deficit in life as an adult, right? And you know what? That's true. But at the same time, there's nothing you can do about that. So don't go into the judger pit because that's the that's the case, right? Um, so here's what I would say. First of all, in terms of the neuroscience of it, right? The brain is probably the most malleable organ in your body, right? Absolutely can change. If you think about your muscles, if you lay around on the couch all day, your muscles are going to atrophy, right? But you can change that situation. It takes time and it takes effort and repetition, but eventually you can have strong muscles. Even an elderly person can do that, right? And and the brain is more powerful than that at change. But it takes the same, consistency work, certain kinds of things help the brain change more. The brain has this whole reward system that it sort of accelerates, the change and things like that. So this system of the judger versus the learner mindset and making switches is based upon the neuroscience of changing your brain, right? So the first thing I would say is that it's based on a well-studied manner in which you really can change your brain and change your mind and change, your you can't ever get your reaction system is natural to you, right? You wouldn't want to get rid of that system, right? But what you want is for it to operate properly
Yes.
and not go out of whack when it shouldn't, right? That's what you're really trying to get your brain to change about, and it can change that. And so then the last thing I would say about that in terms of a practical approach to how a person anybody should begin this way, but it's especially true for someone who has a trauma background, is you build foundation, right? You start with what's the first thing? And you just start practicing that. And the first thing is just awareness, right?
Mhm.
That you become aware of the physical sensations that you're experiencing and aware of the kinds of questions that you're asking, right? If you can get to where you're becoming more aware, then the rest of the process will be easier for you, right? Because if you're not aware, you're not going to be able to do any of the rest of the process, right? If you're just stuck in that mode and, whatever that is, you're not going to be doing the rest of it, right? So awareness has to come first. So they certainly recommended this. I'm recommending this, but it's based on the fact that they recommend it, and it just makes sense. Is to focus on creating awareness, and they recommend, and this makes sense to me as well, that you begin with physical awareness, right?
Yes.
Regularly taking inventory. How am I feeling right now? Like, am I tense? Am I afraid? Am I anxious? Am I angry? Right? And just becoming aware of that, right? In the physical body, you can then build on top of that. What questions am I asking, right? In my mind, to other people, to myself, and just becoming aware of what those are, of just becoming aware of what questions are you asking? Whose fault is this? Why am I such a screw up? Why do I keep making these mistakes over and over again? Why do they keep making these mistakes over and over again? Right? And so I move from awareness, physical. I get good at that. I'm thinking, I'm becoming aware of it, and then build on top of that growth to becoming aware of the kinds of questions that I'm asking. Give yourself grace to not even worry about the switching and all that kind of stuff. Just
Can I
become
ask
more.
a question?
Absolutely, 100%.
I don't want to come over there because I'm getting ready for bed
Oh,
now,
okay.
but anyway.
She's starting to
Uh,
do her face stuff.
so what if you're not asking questions? What if you're saying stuff like that idiot,
Well,
or
okay.
stuff like that?
So certainly you could just ask yourself, what kind of judgments am I making? Right?
I love that.
What what is the quality of the way that I'm talking to myself or to others?
Oh, good.
And just become aware, right?
This is-
Again, give yourself grace not to have to do this all at once, right? Especially if it's going to be hard, because if you have a trauma background, this is hard stuff, right? It just, slow and steady wins the race. I can't, if I've been, not exercising for a while and eating poorly and stuff like that, I can't go run a marathon. I
I
can't.
think for
Somebody
me,
who's all fit and stuff, come on to the gym and we'll just work out. That's probably not going to go very well.
for me
right?
right now, this whole thing has caused me to be paying a lot more attention to, and be a lot more aware of, if what's going on with me, like emotions of fear or anger or anxiety or things like that. And then to be thinking, what is going on with this? I'm asking questions about that. Why am I feeling that way? And like, is that really warranted? Like, is this really some dire, threatening thing? Why am I feeling threatened and feeling these feelings from, whatever it is that is the reason why I'm doing it? And yeah, it makes I feel like it's um been very helpful, because I can think of, since we've been reading that book, I can think of a number of times where I was kind of, in that mode from something somebody said or did or something like that. And then I did that. I started thinking, okay, here it is. I'm feeling angry or perturbed or whatever by what this person said. Why am I feeling that way? And what did they say? And how, what did they mean by it? What did they really mean by that? I'm interpreting it this way, but I don't know, what they meant by that. And if they if if they did, they might not even have meant what I'm thinking, or um if they did mean it the way I took it, that made me feel anxious or angry or whatever, then why is that such a big deal to me? Why do I really care about that so much? And then I had read this book recently, um, you know, uh Suzanne was talking about therapists. I've gone to a couple different therapists, and maybe there's some better ones out there, but honestly, I think I've gotten felt more helped by books written by different sorts of people and therapists, whether it's this one or those Tim Fletcher. He's a Christian counselor that focuses on complex PTSD. There are some people who
Yeah.
specifically focus on complex PTSD. And from my understanding, it can actually be a little bit hard to find a therapist who really understands complex PTSD. But so I read this book by that lady, Mel Robbins, and the title of the book is Let Them. I don't know if anybody else has ever seen it or read it. Mel Robbins is this lady. I don't know what she is. She's kind of like, is she a psychologist or something? It's on
I
YouTube.
don't think so.
And she talks about learning to not care so much what other people think, or do, and want to control that, or feel like that where you are, what your level of peace or um, what things are, where you're at internally, not being based on what is going on externally around you, that you have a locus of control with inside of yourself and not external locus of control. Like if the circumstances or how people are outside of you have to be just right in order for you to be in a place that's good within yourself. And so I've thought about that a lot with regard to this change your questions, change your life thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps me to kind of make emotional and mental
Yeah,
shifts.
I've seen you doing it. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work. I've done a lot of, reading different. Actually, Donna has been an influence. I think Donna has been a big influence for me in that regard, because she has really encouraged me to, I don't know, how did Donna, she says something that talks about pursuing recovery and
Yeah.
really, and um doing the work that you need to do to get
I need
the
to
help that you need.
wrap up the recording. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let me do this because it's 8:30 and this recording has gone way long, super long. So I'm gonna close that out. If you've stayed through this video, you get a gold star. So give yourself a gold star, you win. All right, so I'm gonna close out, and hope you have a blessed day or night. And again, a2kchurch.org. Come check us out.